Mr. President, we are grateful to Special Representative of the UN Secretary-General Peter Duhey for his briefing on the situation in the province and for his views. We welcome the participation of Foreign Minister of Serbia, Marko Đurić. We listened to the opinion of Mr. Glauk Konjuvsa. The situation in Kosovo is constantly deteriorating. The ultranationalist regime of the so-called Prime Minister, Albin Kurti, is forcing the cleansing of the north of the region from the non-Albanian population. The tools are the same: economic strangulation, expansion of the network of police stations in northern municipalities, violence by Kosovo security forces, and acts of intimidation against civilians, criminal prosecution of Serbs on trumped-up cases in order to seize their property. Another clear example of Kosovo-Albanian nationalism is the so-called laws on foreigners and on registration of vehicles. In fact, the Serbs were faced with a harsh choice, either to accept the so-called citizenship of Kosovo or to leave. Pristina's purely symbolic concession on the issue of the functioning of Serbian medical and educational institutions in the form of postponing the operation of these discriminatory so-called laws is by no means the EU's merit, as Special Representative Paul Sørensen claims, but an attempt to disguise its complicity in the gradual seizure of the structures that ensure the survival of the Serbian population of the province. As for the creation of the community of Serbian municipalities in Kosovo, as provided for in the 2013 Brussels Agreement, Pristina, with the connivance of Brussels, continues to sabotage their creation. The blasphemous reprisal against the Serbian cultural and religious heritage continues. Orthodox cemeteries, monasteries, and churches are desecrated and looted. Since 1999, more than 60 objects have been damaged at the hands of vandals. Almost half of them have been completely destroyed. Since 2000, 400 Orthodox cemeteries have been desecrated, 50 destroyed, and more than 100,000 tombstones destroyed. In an attempt to erase the Serbian presence of Kosovo-Albanian, pseudoscientists falsify the history of the region. However, it is impossible to erase the historical fact that Kosovo is the cradle of the national identity of the Serbs and the Serbian Orthodox Church. In addition, Serbian political representatives are also deprived of their fundamental rights. Suffice it to mention the fraud of the so-called Kosovo Central Election Commission against the Serbian List Party during the parliamentary elections. Along with the lawlessness described above, Pristina is probing the possibility of the Kosovo security forces entering the north of the province. The appearance of the SBK military convoy recorded there in October 2025, allegedly by mistake, is yet another demonstrative attempt by the local authorities to get rid of their obligation to coordinate their actions with the command of the NATO-led Kosovo force. Unidentified Kosovo Albanians in massed shelling of Serbian police patrols in the land security zone on the administrative line with central Serbia have become more frequent. In this context, we are alarmed by media reports about Mr. Kurti's attempts to persuade his Western partners to support his idea of withdrawing NATO's Kosovo force from this buffer zone, forces that remain the only legitimate military formation in the province, as stipulated by the Kumanovo Agreement and UNSC Resolution 1244. We are convinced that the replacement of the international presence by the Pristina military is fraught with a serious aggravation of the security situation. This must not be allowed. We should not forget that the Kosovo Albanians responsible for the beating of UN mission in Kosovo staff member Mikhail Krasnoshchikov on May 28, 2019, have not yet been brought to justice. In addition, on December 31, 2021, in violation of established international legal norms, Pristina declared the mission's employee, Andrei Antonov, persona non grata. At the same time, Kurti's team is systematically glorifying war criminals, the former leaders of the Kosovo Liberation Army, KLA. Rallies are held in their support. The Pristina Parliament adopts resolutions, and thematic matinees are organized in kindergartens using the symbols of the UAC. The EU invariably turns a blind eye to this, despite the fact that now the mentioned leaders of the Kosovo militants are being tried in The Hague for war crimes and crimes against humanity in a special court established with the leadership of the EU. Moreover, Western capitals continue to indulge Pristina in forcing the Serbian authorities to settle the Kosovo problem exclusively on Pristina's terms, helping to strengthen the province's state sovereignty and create and arm their own so-called army, which the Kosovo Albanians are prohibited from having in accordance with UN Security Council Resolution 1244. NATO members do not stand aside either. In cooperation with some of its members, it is planned to launch the production of ammunition in the region by the end of this year. Cooperation within the framework of the openly anti-Serb military alliance, Zagreb-Tirana-Pristina, is gaining momentum. Such forced militarization of Kosovo poses a serious threat of escalation in the Balkans. Against this background, the optimistic assessments in the Secretary-General's report of the EU's mediating role in the Belgrade-Pristina dialogue are puzzling. It is obvious that the Brussels format of negotiations, as well as the EU as mediators, has completely discredited itself and has nothing to do with normalization for a long time. And such frank duplicity of Western mediators deserves an appropriate assessment by the Security Council. Given the incessant series of violations of UN Security Council Resolution 1244 by the so-called Kosovo authorities and the Western guardians who indulge them, it is becoming increasingly important to conduct a thorough analysis of this document, which remains the cornerstone of the stability architecture in the Balkans. A clear signal from the Security Council is needed that the international community will not tolerate a violation of Resolution 1244, according to which the autonomous province of Kosovo and Metohija is an integral part of the Republic of Serbia. For our part, we will continue to assist Belgrade in defending its legitimate rights and interests in relation to Kosovo and Metohija, protecting the sovereignty and territorial integrity of the country. We will only make a decision that suits the Serbs themselves. Mr. President, in these difficult circumstances, it is unacceptable to reduce the frequency and format of Security Council meetings on Kosovo, as well as to reduce the budgetary and personnel potential of UNMIK, which continues to carry out the important task of helping to maintain stability in the province. Thank you for your attention.